But I think what the ocarina needs is something in popular culture, and it can be just music itself.
Hello, everyone. My name is David Erick Ramos, and welcome to the Ocarina podcast. At least, I think it's called the Ocarina podcast. I'm not really sure. If you have better suggestions for a name, let me know in the comments down below. But I've been wanting to do a podcast for a couple years now, and we actually recorded this episode of the podcast last March before the pandemic happened. So this has been a long time in waiting. But the format for these podcasts is going to be primarily inviting guests from the Ocarina community around the world and just giving them a spotlight on what they're doing to support the Ocarina and make sure that it gets the credit that it deserves in the music world. And so I'm really excited to talk to some of my friends in future episodes. And just a quick shout out. These podcasts would not be possible without the support of my Patreon community. So today's episode is brought to you by Patreon. I make Ocarina content for a living, including podcasts like this, and it means a lot that people get behind me in the things that I do to get the word out about the Ocarina every single day. So if you are interested in joining that community and helping support projects like this, head on over to patreon.com/docjazz4, where you can get a bunch of rewards like MP3s to my past covers, backtracks, sheet music that I use for the videos. Even the extended version of today's podcast and future podcasts as well will be available. And I also just released a project that I call the Ocarina Real Book, which is a compilation of the 33 most popular Ocarina tunes and its transcriptions with sheet music and with tabs. So it's suitable for people of all experience levels with the Ocarina, and that is available as soon as you join Patreon at any tier level. So again, head on over to patreon.com/docjazz4. The link is in the description, and I appreciate all your support. I also want to mention that starting October 1st, we're going to be celebrating October, which is being hosted by the Global Ocarina Community, GOC, as well as 3 of our U.S. Ocarina septets, including Okabanda, my septet, Silverwind Ocarina, and Shooting Star Ocarina. And the goal is to be posting content every single day to promote the Ocarina around the world. And we love it if you participated as well. So you can use the hashtag October or hashtag October 2021 to participate so that we see your content, leave you some comments. Yeah, we just love to have you with us. So my first guest today is Mr. Spencer Register, who's been a long-time colleague of mine, and it was a great conversation. Again, we recorded this pre-pandemic, and there was also a couple issues with our cameras, so you're going to see us swapping between cameras periodically throughout the episode. So I hope that's not too noticeable. But yeah, it was just great to talk to him about his career, what inspired him to get started, and even talk about his huge, amazing Legend of Zelda tribute video that he released a little over a year ago. And again, in the extended version of this podcast, we talk more about the behind the scenes of that. Just really excited to dive in and talk to my first guest, Spencer Register. My guest today is Spencer Register, owner and operator of Spencer Ocarina out of North Carolina. He's been making ocarinas for almost 20 years, specializing in professional quality transverse and double ocarinas, including some inspired by The Legend of Zelda. Spencer, thank you for being my guest today.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So I've known you for a really long time, and I've told this story a million different ways, but I got started on YouTube because of your ocarinas. And the way that went about was I obviously was like a huge Legend of Zelda fan, and I got my first Ocarina back in 2000 and was obsessed with it for a couple years, dwindled down as high school went on, and then at the start of my college, I was like, but I should go on eBay and just see like what's out there. I'm still kind of dabbling in music with the Ocarina, and so I typed in Zelda Ocarina, and was floored because I saw your 12-hole Zelda replicas. And first of all, I don't think anyone else was making or distributing 12-hole ocarinas at the time. So I'm still crediting you with introducing the 12-hole to the United States. But I tried to bid on that ocarina so many times, and there was just constant bidding wars, and it was insane. And so for months, I was like, I'm going to win this time. I'm going to win this time. And finally, I told myself, if I don't win this last bid, I am giving up. And I remember very vividly, I bid $255 and I lost. Someone outbid me.
Oh
And
no.
you graciously messaged me the next day and were like, "Hey, I saw you've been bidding on these. Would you like to buy one for the last bid that you made?" And I was like, "Yeah, please. I need this." And I got it and I absolutely loved it. And I started making videos on YouTube, and the rest is kind of history. So, thank you for that.
That is
And
awesome.
I'd love to hear kind of your story of like how did it get to that point, and what was it like starting your Ocarina business?
Well, I guess it goes back to Zelda. Not surprisingly, my story is probably pretty similar to yours. Only I kind of went off into the making realm while you became this great ocarina player on YouTube, and I love all your stuff, and I've followed you for years, and it really is cool to hear how we kind of uh, connect or cross paths in that way all those years ago. And but yeah, I played The Legend of Zelda as a 12-year-old kid, and my mind was completely blown by how amazing it was that they incorporated this musical instrument into a video game. And but I didn't think much more about it beyond the video game itself, because I didn't think that the ocarina was a real thing. And but sometime later, I guess it was just happenstance, I saw an ocarina in a dictionary. I saw the illustration for the ocarina in a dictionary, and that was another mind-blowing moment for me. And I thought, if ocarinas are real instruments, I got to have one. And so at the time, we didn't have the internet. I don't even think we had a computer in my home. This was like, late 90s. And maybe before some of your viewers were even born. But so the only way that I knew to seek out an ocarina was call the local music shop. And so that's what I did. And the guy answered the phone, and we spent about 3 or 4 minutes he spent about 3 or 4 minutes trying to figure out what it was I was asking for. He had never heard of one. And but he got his catalog down, and I guess flipped to the index and went to the O's and found one like $4.99 plastic ocarina, and asked if I wanted him to order for me, and I said absolutely. And so it came in a week later, and when I got it, I was in love. From that first note, I was hooked on the
Wow.
ocarina. That first terrible note, it wasn't a great sounding ocarina, but it was a real ocarina, and that was what mattered to me. From there, it was just kind of a novelty, something I just carried around in my pocket at school, and may have gotten in trouble a couple of times playing it when I wasn't supposed to. But and then some of my other friends who were familiar with Zelda and were playing the game, they also wanted an ocarina, so they ordered from the same store. And before I knew it, there were like a dozen ocarina players around the school. And but after all of that kind of died down, I still loved the ocarina when all of my friends were kind of past that kind of fad, I guess. And but I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't in love with the particular one that I had. So I thought, I need to upgrade. I need something that sounds a little better than this. And the problem was, by that time, I had gone on the internet, either at the library at school or maybe a cousin's house, and I had seen the professional quality ocarinas that were available, and I saw that they were made out of ceramic, which was kind of interesting to me. And so I thought, I don't really have, $60-$70 to spend on an ocarina as a 12-year-old kid, but I might be able to make one. And so I bought a 25-pound bag of clay and did my best to copy the plastic ocarina that I had. And that also sounded terrible. But it was another moment of just really falling in love with kind of making clay sing. And I made another one. It sounded a little better, and I just kept going. And before I knew it, I had dozens of ocarinas in a box. And I was taking them to my middle school to have my middle school art teacher fire them for me. And so it kind of took off from there.
So I was speaking with a mutual friend of ours, Sandy Schmidt of Claziness Whistleworks up in Seattle. And I don't know how you came up in conversation, but she went, "Oh, that annoying little kid back from the Ocarina forums." And we started laughing, and she was telling me about how inquisitive you were, and how much of an avid learner you were, and how much she respected you about that. How important was that to your process, just talking to other ocarina makers, getting those questions answered, and what are some of those experiments that came from that?
Oh yeah, that was very important to me. And Sandy was a great kind of mentor. Her and Richard, who passed away a few years ago, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the other ocarina makers on that forum were always so generous with their sharing of their knowledge, and I learned a lot on that forum as a kid. I was really young, probably 13 or 14 years old when I discovered that. So, there were no resources at a library, for ocarina making, and it was pretty much down to learning from ocarinas that you collected, and just talking to other ocarina makers. So through the power of the internet, we were able to share a lot of tips and tricks and ideas, and really encourage and inspire each other. So that was a really special time.
Mm. Sadly, those forums are long gone now, but before they took them down, I took a peek through. I saw some of those posts that you had posted,
Yeah.
and you asked a lot of questions, so that was pretty cool. So the 12-hole ocarina, what how did you discover that? Because for me, like I mentioned, your 12 holes were the first time I had ever laid eyes on those. Just for the longest time, I only saw 4-hole, 5-hole, 6-hole, so English pendants. But
Right.
yeah, what was your discovery like for the 12-hole?
Yeah, the English pendant style, I believe, was kind of the only thing available in the United States, except for maybe Anita Fing's 10-hole ocarinas. Those were still being sold at the time. So I was aware of those. I was aware of the Boudreaux 10-hole ocarinas, and I discovered the 12-hole ocarina through a member on that forum, Sammy Chupo Ming,
Oh yes.
who lives in Hong Kong, and he was far ahead of me on the wonderful world of 12-hole ocarinas and Japanese ocarinas in particular. And he began showing photos of his collection, which was just vast. He would buy like entire sets from different makers, and it. I just thought, 12 holes has got to be better than 10. So, of course, we know there's some controversy about that, but that was kind of like peeking into another realm that was just really exciting. And so I began researching 12-hole ocarinas and kind of trying to break into the Asian market where they were more available. And you had to kind of get past the language barriers and everything. But I eventually purchased a few 12-hole ocarinas and was really convinced that this was kind of the next step, the next level for the ocarina. And so I kind of took that path with my own ocarinas.
That's pretty amazing. So we already briefly talked about it. The Legend of Zelda. Obviously, that was a great way and avenue for the West, the United States, in particular, to learn about Ocarina's existence. Even though they had been being made and sold for a while, I think our generation certainly came to discover it that way. And what was it like trying to uh, market and sell ocarinas at that time, specifically the Legend of Zelda ones?
Well, it's kind of funny. When I began making ocarinas, I think by that point I had really began to look at the ocarina as a musical instrument that was kind of its own thing apart from Zelda. It had, its own unique history. It had a really unique sound, and it was something that I respected as a musical instrument, not necessarily because it was associated with a video game that I played as a kid. So I was actually initially reluctant to make any kind of Zelda themed ocarinas or inspired ocarinas.
Mm-hmm.
And but eventually I began to think about it, and I thought, well, if I can make a Zelda themed ocarina that still sounds good, that doesn't sacrifice the sound quality that I'm really trying to dial in, then I'll do it. And so I worked really hard on that, and it was kind of a challenge because the Ocarina of Time in particular has kind of a strange shape, and of course the finger holes are just bonkers. And so I knew I had to make some adjustments there, but I eventually developed something that I thought still sounded good, sounded just like my other non-Zelda themed ocarinas, and but looked like the Zelda ocarina or the Ocarina of Time. And so there were other Zelda themed ocarinas available at the time, but again, they were the 4-hole, 5-hole pendant style. So at the time, the only way that I knew to sell something, at least easily and quickly, was on eBay. This was before Amazon blew up. I think Amazon was still primarily a bookstore at the time. So eBay was the place to go. There was no Etsy. Of course, there was no YouTube. And so I think I just I had already been selling my non-Zelda standard ocarinas for a little while, I believe. And so I put the Ocarina of Time on there, and I put them up for bidding. I didn't have a buy it now, and I was just amazed at people tripping over themselves to buy these things and what they were willing to bid for them. And I guess it made sense because they were, as far as I know, they were the first 12-hole Zelda themed ocarinas available, at least in the West. So that really motivated me and encouraged me to continue making the Zelda ocarinas and to continue improving them and to make the best quality instrument that I could make. Something that wasn't just a prop, but something that could grow with the player. So that, I think, that eventually became my bestseller and what a lot of people knew my brand for, and I was completely okay with that.
Going back to your reluctance to use the Zelda franchise as a marketing tool, do you think that hurt the Ocarina in the long run? And we might talk about this a little bit later, because I also want to talk about your video. You made an incredible Legend of Zelda video, probably the best Ocarina video I've ever seen.
Oh, thanks.
But really quickly, like, how I also experienced that same reluctance, that after a certain period of time, I came to appreciate the Ocarina more than just as the Zelda flute. I was a huge Zelda fan growing up, so knowing that there was an instrument, music, something that I held so closely to my heart, could be intertwined with this fantastic series, that blew my mind. But after a couple years of playing the Ocarina, I was like, it's bigger than The Legend of Zelda. So
Right.
how did you wrestle with that duality?
I think that ultimately Zelda has been good for the ocarina. I guess you have to go back to pre-Zelda. What was the status of the ocarina, at least in the West, or in the United States in particular? And I would say it was pretty much dead. So, Zelda definitely brought a lot of new eyes and ears to the ocarina, and it could have been anything that repopularized the ocarina. And so I am glad that it was something that respected the instrument and presented it in a positive way, in a way that really endeared it to an entire generation of people. because it could have been something far worse. It could have been something that presented the ocarina in a terrible way, and then the ocarina would have spent another 50 or 100 years as a joke. So ultimately, I think it's just important that we educate people when we're talking about the Zelda thing, that we say, it's more than just a prop from a video game. It has a great history. It has a great sound. You can play all kinds of wonderful music with it. And so I think most people are able to understand that. Maybe they may not think that initially, but if you kind of show them the world of the ocarina, most people I think are interested beyond Zelda.
So yeah, speaking of Zelda treating the ocarina with respect, I think you did an incredible job doing the same with your music video. I absolutely loved the cinematography. I loved the audio. The track was amazing. In and of itself, it was really beautiful. The arrangement was incredible.
Thank you.
I believe your wife did really awesome as well. And
Yeah.
I just really would love to know the process that went behind that. But first, how was it received? Like, how much traction did it get?
I think so far it's like 98% thumbs up. I don't know the exact numbers, but but yeah, people really seem to like it, and yeah, it was a really long and arduous project that I could not have done without my wife. She was the cinematographer for most of it, and then we had my brother-in-law fill in for the scenes in which she had to be in front of the camera.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, that was a project that was I kind of took the same approach to that I did with the ocarina, the Zelda ocarina, where I thought if I'm going to do something like this, I want it to be the absolute highest quality that I can afford and that I'm capable of. And, I wanted the sound quality to be great. I wanted to present the ocarina as a real musical instrument. Once again, the sound quality was really important, and not just the recording quality, but I mean the ocarina and how I played it, and then of course the video quality is a huge component when you're doing a music video. But that was something that I didn't have a whole lot of experience with. I had some experience with recording music, and of course I've been playing the ocarina as long as I've been making it, so that wasn't quite the challenge that the video portion of it was. But yeah, that was a really interesting and educational process.
Would you ever do something like that again?
No, not without a lot more help than what we had, both financially and just hands and feet, because it was, we had to travel to so many different locations. We had to find the locations first, and then you have to get permission, because just because you find a location through a Google search doesn't mean that it's going to work out, especially if it's something like a heavily trafficked tourist spot or something like that. So that was really tricky. And then lining up schedules and all of the logistics of that was just insane. And that was one of the reasons that it took a really long time. The filming portion took a little over 2 years. And
Wow.
that was after we had already finished the music. And now some of that time was spent getting the costumes ready and the props and all of that. But we had to spread out the actual filming about 2 years, because my wife works public job, and so we had to kind of work her work schedule into that.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't easy, but I worked on it when I could in between making ocarinas, and eventually we got it finished.
That's incredible. So from conception to publishing, that was about 2 years overall.
From conception to publishing was probably closer to 5 years.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, from the moment that I decided to do the project to actually uploading it, I think, was about 5 years, because
Mm.
I took some time to try and figure out what I wanted to do music wise. First, did I want to do um, a bunch of individual songs from Zelda and each have its own video, or put them all together in some crazy medley? And I thought the medley would work better because it would be um, a little bit more. It would have a little bit more entertainment value because you could shorten the songs and just keep things moving. Whereas if you do individual videos or individual songs, if you try to stretch that out to anything beyond 3 minutes and you're in like one location, that can get kind of boring, I think, especially from the visual standpoint. And people are kind of antsy these days and don't have a whole lot of patience. So you got to keep throwing things at them to keep them interested. So I thought a
Sure.
medley would work better for that. And so I sat down at the piano and began working out how I could take the songs from Ocarina of Time and present them in a kind of um, bigger way than how they are in the game. And that was hard because I wanted something that was kind of action packed, sounded big, and sounded epic.
Mm.
I don't like to overuse that word, but that was really what I was going for. And it was kind of hard because there really aren't. I mean, there are great songs on that soundtrack, as you know, but not a whole lot that are kind of driving and energetic. So I had to kind of put my own spin on some of them and really play around with the key signatures and the tempo. And eventually I got something I liked. And I worked with a film composer in LA
Oh
to
wow.
get kind of the sequencing done for the backing track. And we went back and forth on that for several months until we got something that kind of sculpted it into something that I really liked. And then from there, I recorded the ocarina part and had it mixed and mastered, and that was it for the music. So then it was on to the video part, or the pre-production with the costumes and the props and finding locations and all of that. So that took quite a while.
Well, it turned out incredible. Congratulations once
Thank
again.
you.
And I'd like to shift now to this flood of uh, ocarinas from Taiwan or from China, all these Zelda replicas specifically. Um, how has that affected your business overall?
Well, I think that it's had kind of the same negative impact on my business as it's had on the ocarina world in general.
Hmm.
Any kind of um, low quality product entering into the market, especially on a massive scale like we've seen in the past few years, I think is bad news.
In terms of uh, sales, if you could compare your business percentage wise from today to the last 5 years, how much has it impacted you? Do you think?
Well, I've I think it's a little harder to sell these days, especially the Zelda Ocarina, if that's just the one we're talking about. But at the same time, there are more people on the internet now than ever. There's certainly more people on the internet than when I first began selling ocarinas. I mean, when I put my first ocarinas on eBay, probably sometime in 2003, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Maybe half of the country was still, not really online, or at least didn't have any wherewithal to go to eBay and purchase something like that. So, um, as the internet has grown and more people have gotten onto the internet, and then now with social media, uh, there are a lot more tools and a lot more opportunities to promote your business. And so I've been trying to take more advantage of that and take advantage of YouTube. And there are just so many opportunities out there, and it's hard to balance that with spending hours out in my shop making ocarinas. I can spend all day doing that, and then I come in, it's all I can do to get emails answered and orders out, but then to have to deal with social media and all of that, it's kind of difficult. But I try to take advantage of that, and that I think that has kind of offset a little bit of the impact from the um, the competition that we're seeing from the kind of lower quality ocarinas. And then just, you know, kind of trying to educate people on the difference. You know, a handmade artisan ocarina that, you know, someone is really passionate about making and can demonstrate to you sounds really good and can be played really well. I think that's going to sell that instrument to a certain demographic of people who aren't just looking for a prop or something to sit on their shelf.
Do you have anything that you're really excited about in terms of your line of ocarinas?
Well, I'm really working hard on bringing a few different keys, newer key ocarinas to the market. Right now, I'm selling the Alto C basically, but I really want to focus on larger ocarinas. So I'm working on developing bass ocarina right now, and hopefully I can have that ready and available in the next few months. And then I'm working on another project that I can't say too much about, but it's really unique. It's really outside of the box, and it may change the way people think of multi-chamber ocarinas. It's definitely going to change the way we play the multi-chamber ocarina. So I'm really excited about that. That one may be a little bit further out, but I'm trying to work the kinks out of it, and I think it'll be really interesting.
That sounds amazing. I'm very excited. All right, so we reached the end of the podcast interview. I have a couple questions that I like to ask all my guests, if you don't mind. Um,
Sure.
what is your favorite ocarina? It could be one of your own or one in your collection.
Oh, I should have anticipated this. Um, that's wow. That's really hard. Hmm. I think that well, it wouldn't be one. It would be probably the entire collection that I have of Charlie Hind ocarinas,
Hmm.
because I bought them from him in person. I met Charlie years ago when I first began making ocarinas at a convention, and we actually exchanged ocarinas. Yeah, I didn't buy them. We exchanged ocarinas, and
Wow.
so interestingly, it was that exchange that kind of um, made him decide to begin making sweet potato style transverse ocarinas, because he
Huh.
said that he had, you know, older transverse ocarinas, like the Fiend ocarinas and some of the Boudreaux ocarinas, but he said he never really cared for the sound. They weren't really his kind of ideal sound, but when he played mine, he there was something a little different there that he liked, a little more clarity, maybe more in line with what he was doing with his inline ocarinas.
Hmm.
So he shortly after that began making his wooden transverse ocarinas, and so that was a really memorable meeting. And he was very encouraging, and we just sat and had a really good conversation. So I have a really cool memory attached to those ocarinas, and I don't play them much because I'm kind of afraid I'm gonna, you know, wood has to be really pampered and taken care of. So, but they're on display, and I just I think about that every time I see them.
That's pretty amazing. I had no
Yeah,
idea that you actually had met him in person before. That's pretty cool.
yeah, really cool guy.
What accomplishment in your ocarina career are you most proud of?
Hmm. Um, I guess I'm just proud and fortunate to be able to do what I do for a living. You know, it's not very often that people can do what they love, and I certainly love what I do, and I have for almost 20 years. And I look forward to growing my business in the next year, and I have a lot of plans and a lot of ideas for that. And so yeah, just being able to get up every morning and do what I love is a great accomplishment.
I love that. And finally, for anyone else who would like to start dabbling in making their own ocarinas, what advice would you give for them?
Well, there's a lot more information out there now, so I would just say take advantage of mainly the internet. There's still not a whole lot in print, although there have been a few books published in recent years that I would definitely look at. And I would say be patient and focus on the sound first and foremost. The your particular style or look or whatever will come with time, but focus on getting a good sound and learning the basics of sculpting, the voicing, and all of that if you're working in clay. And I would just say, be patient, and it takes a while, and you're going to have a lot of bad sounding ocarinas to begin with. But if you really stick to it, I think everyone seems to improve with every ocarina that they make if they really stick to it. So that would be my advice.
And on that note, I appreciate you sticking to it all these years. Thank you for continuing to strive to make excellent ocarinas. And where
Thank
can
you.
people find those?
SpencerOcarina.com, and check out my YouTube channel as well, which is youtube.com/SpencerOcarina.
And watch his Zelda video because it is amazing.
Yeah.
Spencer, thanks for your time.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it.
So to wrap up today's episode, just want to give one more big thank you to all of our supporters over on Patreon. If you'd like to join the community and help support content like this going forward, head on over to patreon.com/DocJazz4 and join at any tier. And you can listen even to the extended version of today's podcast, as well as for all future podcasts, which I'm hoping is going to be a monthly thing at this point. If you haven't already, I'd love it if you subscribed. You can check out all of the upcoming reviews, tutorials, music videos, and future podcast episodes. And we'd love to have you part of this community. So thank you guys so much for all of your support, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.